Hi everybody, this is John from DM Shower Thoughts, where we find our best selves through gaming. And our last set of subclasses we're going to break down before our review of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is the Artificer. The Artificer, of course, is the newest of the 13 core classes of 5th edition. It only has 3 subclasses, and really, none of them are too bad. Artificer is going to get a full re-release in Tasha's. Originally, it appeared in Eberron Rising from the Last War, and it is going to include the Armorer subclass, which is going to be new. So we'll see how that stacks up to the current options that we have for it. As you may know from my original 13 core class rank video, Artificer is the only S tier subclass. And I believe that because it really can be anything you want it to be. It can be pretty much a tank, it can be a pretty competitive damage dealer, pretty competitive support character, and it can be a pretty strong controller. It's not going to be the best at any of those things, but it can do a good job. It can be a solid secondary character to any of those roles, and really if you build an Artificer, it will probably fit into any team composition. And it can even change because it has prepared spells, encounter to encounter. So it could be that, you know what, you really need a lot of damage for these guys. So you prepare some of your more damaging spells and everything. So do you need more of like a secondary healer? You can rotate out one of your control spells in order to prepare Cure Wounds. And really what the 3 subclasses let you do is figure out which of those secondary roles you're gonna specialize in. Combine this with the Artificer's ability to create its own magic items and really choose its own loadout independent of the DM's permission, and you've got a really strong class under your belt. To break down how most of these tier rankings work, the tiers are in descending order: S, A, B, C, D, F. None of the Artificer subclasses are going to be lower than C tier. So I'm just going to kind of go with my explanation of what each tier means as I go. And remember, I'm looking at this from single class perspective and how fun the subclass is to play from levels 1 through 20. So just because it's got a strong lower level ability or a strong capstone doesn't mean that the subclass as a whole is going to be higher or lower ranked. Starting off, we have the Alchemist, which really is kind of, I guess, the generic Artificer if you're gonna have one. Alchemy in D&D is kind of something that you see in a lot of different games. Basically, it's magical chemistry. The Alchemist is a pretty good support subclass. It has access to a feature that I was really attracted to, which was it can heal without expending a spell slot. Heal is a really powerful 6th level spell, and normally Artificer only has access to levels 1 through 5 spell slots. So the fact that it had access to a free 6th level spell and it could spam lesser restorations, to me, gave a very unique perspective to the support role without sacrificing offensive power. The other thing that I saw immediately, just from Artificer's core feature, is that it can attune to any magic item. So if you can get your Alchemist a Staff of Power or a Staff of the Archmagi, like, there's not a whole lot your Alchemist can't do. It can heal really well, it can blast really well, it can control and support really well. But on its own, if you're not going to have access to those high-level magic items that you can freely attune to, I think Alchemist is a solid B-tier subclass. It does reward you for building your character a specific way. It lets you add to, I believe, fire, acid, and poison damage spells. And it gives you access to Healing Word, which is one of my favorite low-level healing spells. And it really does have a defined loadout. However, it's not the most powerful option I would pick if you were to freely kind of compare all the subclasses. I've played 19th level Alchemist before. I had a blast with it. Also, there was no other healer in the party, so I was able to stand out pretty well. If you had put me next to, say, a druid with Healing Spirit or a Life Domain Cleric, I might not be, like, the Alchemist wouldn't be as powerful a support character as those, but it still is decent enough to hold its own in terms of a party composition. Artillerist, on the other hand, is going to be an A tier subclass, because the one thing I didn't like about Alchemist was that it didn't really use its bonus action a whole lot, besides maybe Healing Word. There is a lot of times I found myself kind of stuck from an action economy perspective, where I might cast a really cool spell, and then that's it. Whereas, like I said, I was playing Artificer at 19th level. I had there was a Soarlock that was quickening everything, and there was a monk that was like doing all its bonus action monk shenanigans. The Alchemist didn't feel as fulfilling because it would be like, I cast Cure Wounds, my turn's over. The Artillerist addresses this by having turrets that it can use to either help with damage output or control. So you can choose how your turret works. You can choose if it's going to be a flamethrower, or shoot force bolt, or allow for temporary hit points. The turrets can be kind of a small, like, you think like strategy game turret, or it could be like a small arcane firearm. It really does give the Artificer some pretty awesome area of effect options, like Fireball, and it does reward the Artificer for being more of a damage dealing controller. And just seeing it in play, seeing its action economy from low levels and high levels, I think that the Artillerist A-level subclass, it's not so much better than the Alchemist. I can always recommend it, but it does feel a little bit better to play because of its better action economy. And that brings us to our last subclass, because there's only 3 of them, which is the Battlesmith. And Battlesmith is an A tier subclass. I think that the Battlesmith having its own little droid that can do stuff with its bonus action, again addressing those action economy concerns, is pretty strong. The fact that it can use its intelligence modifier kind of like a Hexblade with its weapon attacks is pretty strong. I think that there's a lot of really cool multi-class builds you can do off of it. Again, we're looking at the single class build, but still. And I think basically to have a Beastmaster with spells that matter, as mean as that sounds, it's strong, you know? So, like, I wonder how much people would like the Beastmaster Ranger if the Beast Companion uses its bonus action instead of an action, and if it had better spell selection. The Artificer has some really awesome spells. So not only do you get to control an additional piece on the board, which is a really powerful feature to have, it also has a really nice spell selection that can really allow the Battlesmith to do a whole lot of things. I was a little bit tempted to give Battlesmith S tier, but I don't. A lot of its expanded spell list is kind of melee based, which I don't see the Artificer excelling in. I also don't see it like failing in it. It's just, again, meh. So that's really its spell list and all the smites and stuff. To me, that's what keeps it from being like an S tier subclass. Like, if you could get Fireball on a Battlesmith and Healing Word on a Battlesmith, you don't need anything else. But to me, I actually like that balance better, because, like I've said in a few of these videos, I'd rather have a class that has a whole bunch of A tier options than one S tier option and then a bunch of like C tier options, you know? I'd rather have a few different choices of equal but different power than like one optimized option and a whole bunch of not optimized options. To me, interesting game mechanics aren't, is it better or worse, and I picked the worse option because I'm so quirky. It's, do they have equal power but with different expressions, you know? Whether that's more leaning into the support role or more leaning into a blaster role, you know what I'm talking about. So we'll see how the Armorer's final text kind of stacks up to these, but this was the last of the official subclasses. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and remember, game responsibly. Bye-bye now.